What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are breaking down Field Yates' brand new 2025 NFL mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Below my face is my board. I'm continually updating players, so this is going to be shifting around a lot, but I just dropped my top 15 defensive interiors in the 2025 NFL draft, so feel free to go check that out. I read a whole entire scouting report per player. You get to see exactly how I break them down. I've also done that for cornerback as well as quarterback. I did actually 42 corners, so go check that out as well. But super excited for this. Let's get right into it. I actually ended up spilling over some stuff, so I'll be right back. But back to this. Also, if you guys want to be able to see why I have my board the way that they are, I post a lot of all 22 clips over on my Twitter page. The easiest way to get there is through that link tree where you just are 2 clicks away. Don't even have to worry about what account I'm on, because all you do is just click the link and it's brought. You get sent right there. So feel free to go check that out. Also check out our sponsor of the show, UnderDog Fantasy, where you get up to $1,000 in free cash when you sign up using my code HAILMARY Sports. Or actually, well, I guess Hail Mary. But also, if you want to make it easy on yourself, you can also use the click the link over in the description. Technically, also in the link tree. But let's get into this, because I love Field Yates. I got to meet him in Mobile. Great dude. Honestly, like, I'm not even saying that to like glaze the bro. He genuinely was a really nice guy to me as well as my friends there. So I'm excited to be able to see him again this year. Fingers crossed we get to go. I assume we will, because I assume if you get accepted the year before and have a great time, don't cause problems, you get to do it the year after. So we'll keep it in mind. But Broshmo and I actually have already booked everything for it. So spoiler alert there in case he hasn't said anything about it. But let's get into this. Let's have a great time. Start with the number 1 overall pick. We got Shedeur Sanders, and I don't know why. I assume, is this like the current standings after week 14? That's interesting, because I thought the Raiders were there, but who knows? Who knows, man? I'm not gonna bitch. I'm not gonna complain. Let's just enjoy this. Let's not like use this for semantics and stuff. We got the New York Giants going Shedeur Sanders, and they gotta go QB. This is gonna be a high floor guy. He's my QB1, but all these QBs at the top have different strengths and weaknesses. Like, you're not really actually getting a worse version of a quarterback in this class until you really get to that like 5th or 6th quarterback range, where maybe you can end up talking about like a Will Howard is like a worse version of Shedeur. Don't worry about it. So it just really is up to preference. And number 2, of course, you got the top quarterbacks going. I mean, I'm going to be doing actually probably a mock draft next week of saying, hey, what happens if the quarterbacks don't go 1 and 2? Remember Malik Willis? Oh, I got a hiccup. Malik Willis ended up being like thought about as a number 2 overall pick, ended up falling to the 80s. So what happens if these teams are like, man, I like these quarterbacks, but maybe not in the top 5? We'll definitely be testing that theory out. At number 3, we got the Patriots going Travis Hunter. It just kind of makes sense. He's going to be a corner for them, but ends up moonlighting at receiver from time to time. I'm not going to disagree with that. Like, if they think he's the best player, he's going to be the best player. You got the Panthers going Abdul Carter. This is a great pick. I just say Mason Graham might be a better one based on the opportunity cost and the drop-off at defensive interior comparatively to edge rusher. But if you end up taking Abdul Carter, I'm going to be the last person to truly criticize the pick. Great spot for him. At number 5, we got the Browns going Kelvin Banks. And I know Field Yates loves Kelvin Banks, so we got to see it through that lens. I'm still semi-skeptical about Kelvin Banks. He's done a great job this year, though. I think he won Offensive Lineman of the Year as well, so good job for him. So the Browns definitely could use offensive line help, whether it comes down to health, whether it comes down to overall contracts, whatever it is, the team needs help in the offensive line, and Kelvin Banks could definitely offer it, especially if you see Kelvin Banks the way that Field does. So, I'm not fully sold on the Kelvin Banks train, but if you are, I am going to be the last person to criticize the team for upgrading their offensive line. I think it's a great move. Then we got the Jets going Mason Graham, perfectly reasonable as well. Like, he's a great player. And again, if you want to see my exact thoughts on him, I just dropped today the video for my top 15 defensive interiors. Spoiler alert, you can also see it. He's my defensive interior 1. At number 7, we got the Titans going T-Mac. People keep wondering where I'm going to have T-Mac on my board. I'm reevaluating all the receivers, and I think that I'm going to probably release it based on like an overall, but I'm actually going to go into the receivers that actually fit particular roles, because I don't think T-Mac is actually overall a great receiver. I think that he is role specific and a great receiver in that role, which is like that true X, that guy who's going to be that red zone threat. even the deep threat for that matter. But, when it comes to route running nuances, I don't know if T-Mac is going to be necessarily all that. So, that's why I ended up developing that this year, because I did think certain player types, like T-Max, where not really the best route runner on planet Earth, where they kind of, get misrepresented. So T-Mac will probably be around that 20 range on my board. Super excited for it, though. At number 8, you got the Jaguars going Will Johnson here. Best outcome for him. He's super young, super talented. I mean, he's the best player in the draft. So the Jaguars get a player of need at a position of value with the best player in the class at 8. Can't complain. At number 9, you got the Bears going Will Campbell here. I would go after Josh Simmons myself, but you know what? You're upgrading the offensive line. If you really think Will Campbell is that good, which I agree, he's my number 11 player, then who cares? Like, you're really getting a good offensive lineman. Don't really overcomplicate it. Sometimes you don't need to play money ball with the position. If you don't fully believe in Josh Simmons and believe more in Will Campbell as a tackle, I'm not going to be the one to fight you on that. I know that Will Campbell will be a good offensive lineman for the Bears, and that's all that matters. At number 10, you got the Saints going Mikael Williams. Perfectly reasonable. For what I would expect the Saints to do. Like, that's a big asterisk. I'm not super high on Mikael Williams, but I do know that based on his athleticism, his overall profile, it's a realistic range for him to go. I have him slipping to the 20s every single time. We'll see if that ends up being empirical come draft time, but it's a good frame for the Saints. I would just want to wait on taking him. At number 11, you got the Bengals going James Pierce. I think that's great. I mean, James Pierce is my number 2 player in the class. So again, that's why I put my board there, so I don't have to explain that to you every time. But I really do love his overall play. And the Bengals have been using some outside linebackers for edge rushing. So, it's not like you need to go after the big guy like Scorton, but I do think James Pierce is not necessarily going to be that instant shoe-in the way that I'd want like a Nick Scorton body type to be. Then you have number 12, the Cowboys going Ashton Jeanty. It's the standard, he's there, pick him. I do think Ashton Jeanty, though, will go in the top 10. I've explained it a billion times, so I'm going to just save us the monologue there. But if the Cowboys can get Ashton Jeanty, it's going to be a ridiculous pickup, so good job for them. The Dolphins can go Malachi Starks. Even after being roasted, he's got roasted as a slot more than an actual safety, so I'll give him a little bit of a longer leash there. At number 14, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Also, I guess, longer description for the Dolphins. You also are losing Javon Holland possibly, but even if you did bring him back, I still think there could have been definitely room there to have 2 of them. Then you got the Colts going Derek Harmon. Again, you can see my opinion on Derek Harmon in the defense interior video I dropped today, where I end up reading a full scouting report on him. But regardless, Derek Harmon's a really good player, super young, and I think this dude is going to be really good in the NFL. I think he's a little more inconsistent and lacks a little bit of the explosiveness that I was excited for, though. So those are my little negatives on him. At 15, you got the Niners going Walter Nolan, another player I'm relatively lower on than the consensus. I did see a lot of his production being more so due to offensive line issues rather than his own pure success. But really do love Walter Nolan from Texas A&M. Was a big fan of him there. And he's done just as good of a job, if not better, at Ole Miss. Statistically, he's done a way better job, but saying when I sat down and watched it, I personally didn't fall in love. At 16, you got the Cardinals going Jalen Walker. That's a dream pick for them if they're sitting there at 16. If you could end up sniping him, that's going to be a ridiculous, ridiculous steal. So good job for Arizona there. The Falcons can go Shamar Stewart, Nick Scorton, Shamar Stewart. Pick your poison. Really, really solid, athletic, big edge rushers in this class. It just doesn't really matter. You get yourself quality regardless of who you're selecting or where you're selecting. At 18, you got the Rams going Josh Simmons. I love that move for him. Obviously, I was talking about the Rams taking him at pick 9. So this is 2 times 9. So I think that's going to be still a good idea. Josh Simmons is going to be a great player. Just had a season-ending leg injury, knee injury, and that might be the reason he slips a little bit because you don't get some bowl process. But, I mean, I didn't really think that. It was more technique than anything, and I don't think a knee injury is going to limit technique the way that if you're loving a player because they're a high-end athlete, it could end up limiting that. Then you get the Buccaneers going Nick Scorton here. I just don't think that the Buccaneers necessarily fit the 280-pound edge rusher stereotype because of the fact, and stereotype, not stereotype, but archetype, because, you're replacing Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. But if you end up wanting to go that route, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not. Good value there at 19. At 20, Luther Burden goes to the Commanders. I've done that pick myself. Not going to be someone to criticize it. Getting after the catch threat for Jaden Daniels. not a bad idea. At 21, you got the Broncos going Colson Loveland. I think they go Tyler Warren over Loveland just because of that blocking ability, as well as like just the overall Sean Payton-y style of tight end, 260 former quarterback. I do think that would be the route that they would go. At 20, I'm not going to complain about Loveland, but I'm just saying I would suggest that would be the way they go. Jonas Avenia goes to the Houston Texans. Real quality offensive lineman here. I think he kicked to the inside for him, and I think that's exactly what they're talking about here. And so he's super flexible, ended up declaring for the draft, ended up playing left tackle and right tackle this year. Still developing in that aspect, but I love the fact that you're going to get yourself a high-quality guard who also has experience at guard and someone who could fill in at tackle in case of injuries. Then you got the Seahawks going Tyler Booker. Love seeing some Tyler Booker love. He falls too far in my mock drafts, but it's hard to like really think of where Booker fits best. And, the Seahawks getting him would be fantastic. We'll see if he comes out. Parker Brailsford already returned, and I think that might be the first domino of a lot of guys from Bama. So continuing on, we got the Los Angeles Chargers going Tyler Warren. Honestly, just switch the two, and I think it would be a little bit more accurate to what I would want. So regardless, tight end for the Chargers is an amazing idea. At 25, you got the Ravens going Mike Green. He ended up just declaring as of like 30 minutes ago. So I love that for him. I love that for the Ravens. They're still looking to be able to get a true like high-end pass rusher that's consistent and young. And I think that Mike Green could even be that. We'll see what happens, though. Kyle Kennard goes to the Packers. I think his style's a little too close to what we see in Donovan Ozurwaku to not have Ozurwaku pair back up with Jeff Hafley from Boston College. So I would just say that, but edge rusher is a good move for the Packers. I would prefer some other positions, but it is what it is. Steelers getting Max Hairston. I'm not a big Max Hairston guy. Like, I think as a man coverage corner, he's amazing, but I think that he's very specific in said role. I would prefer to go after somebody. You look at Azariah Thomas, who has similar issues as Hairston, but I think they're a little bit less stark, a little bit better of a frame, and a little bit more like size to him, obviously at 6'2", 198, even a better athlete at that as well. But on top of that, if you want to go something that's maybe a little bit more realistic, Trey Amos is a pick I've been going for the Steelers a lot. 6'1", 190, very physical corner, very balanced in his approach to the game as well. So I'm not going to disagree with the position and pick. Like, I just personally would prefer maybe some other corners over Max Hairston. Then we have the Eagles going Cam Williams at 28. I think you can't tell Stout no. So Stout U is going to get excited about Cam Williams, who does need that time to develop. Then we have the Bills at 29 going Emeka Ibuka. Emeka is not necessarily the best separator on planet Earth, but he's really damn consistent, used to cold weather, good blocker. If they end up making this move, I'm not going to bitch and complain. It's a solid move. Like, he's a solid receiver. The problem is you have to try to move him to boundary. And I think that for Emeka, since he's had the opportunity, I think, over the past 2 years, and I'm not going to disagree with Brian Hartline in terms of the role of his own receivers. Like, I think he might need to stick in the slot, which there might be some issues there for the Bills. So continuing on, we have the Minnesota Vikings going Siobhan Revell. Ended up being out for the year on a torn ACL. So we'll see what happens. He's unfortunately not going to be playing or available when he does come to Dallas in the Shrine Bowl, but that's okay. Nonetheless, Siobhan Revell Jr., really good player. The Vikings could definitely use a corner. I think that defensive interior guard might be more valuable, but I mean, a lot of free agents right here. So we'll see what happens with whether they bring those guys back or whatnot. At 31, you got the Chiefs going Arianti Urzuri. If he's there, don't pass on it. Like, amazing player, and I would personally be willing to write off Suamatea as a left tackle, but maybe not a right. So you got Urzuri at left, Suamatea at right. I did not like Kingsley. Like, you guys know that I was just not a big fan of him, but Urzuri does have all the flashes that I would want. And if he struggles early and you don't have Trey Smith, put Urzuri at guard. Don't really overthink it. This guy could work as a guard for a short run as he develops and polishes as a tackle. And then at 32, you got the Lions going Donovan Jackson. I mean, guard is one of the first two positions I go after, so who gives a crap whether you do it at 32, you do it at 64. Regardless of that, Donovan Jackson is going to be a really nice get for whoever drafts him. Very athletic player, needs to be a little bit more consistent, but the lockdown reps are absolutely irreplicable by most offensive linemen in college. So I love that. I love you guys. Thank you, Field, for being able to give us some content to review. I always love seeing ESPN mock drafts. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the far side.